There's a photograph of your grandmother from 1957. She's standing in front of an ordinary house in an ordinary cotton dress. Nothing expensive, nothing remarkable on paper, and yet you can't stop looking at her. There's something about the way she's put together, something underneath the dress, something in the way she's standing that you can't quite name. Here's what it was. She knew something. A set of rules, specific and invisible, passed down from her mother and her mother before that. She never thought to name them. Everyone around her was doing the same thing. Then the fashion industry arrived. The rules were replaced with products. The products were replaced with more products. And somewhere in that swap, something was lost that we're still paying for. Literally. Today I'm sharing 10 style rules that dressed women beautifully for decades for almost nothing. Stay all the way to number 1, because number 1 is the single rule that makes every other rule on this list actually work. And I think it might be the thing you've been looking for without knowing it had a name. 10. She owned almost nothing and never felt it. Your grandmother owned roughly 6 dresses in 1957. Research tracking American consumer habits found that the average woman today owns 60 to 80 pieces of clothing and still reports having nothing to wear. That gap isn't explained by need, it's explained by an industry. Zara introduced a model built on manufacturing new silhouettes every few weeks rather than every season. Before fast fashion, clothes cost real money relative to income. Women bought less, cared for what they had, and wore each piece until it genuinely wore out. The wardrobe was a closed system. No Sunday evening standing in front of it feeling defeated. Your grandmother knew exactly what she had. She'd worn it all before. She'd wear it all again. 9. The foundation built the silhouette. Before anything went on, something went under. In 1955, a woman's mourning began with a structured bra, a girdle, and a slip. Not because she was suffering for fashion, because these garments created the silhouette. The dress then had something to work with. When she looked in the mirror before leaving the house, she was looking at a shape that had been built in the layers, each one doing a specific job. Sarah Blakely founded Spanx in 2000 after cutting the feet off a pair of pantyhose. She built a company worth over $1 billion from a single observation. Women's undergarments had stopped doing their job. She was right, but the knowledge hadn't disappeared. It had simply been replaced by convenience, and convenience became a growth category. The dress never made the silhouette. The foundation always did. 8. They dressed for their figure, not the trend. Tina's mother took her to the seamstress at 17. The woman walked around her 3 times and said, A-line skirts, fitted waist, never horizontal stripes across the hip. Tina was in her 20s before she bought anything that contradicted this. She never bought anything that didn't work. In 1958, every women's magazine ran the same section. What to wear for your body type. Hourglass, pear, column, each with a specific prescription for waistlines, hemlines, necklines. This was craft knowledge, passed from seamstress to customer, from mother to daughter, with the same seriousness as a recipe. The fast fashion business model requires that trends apply universally. A silhouette that only suits certain figures sells to a fraction of the market. A trend declared flattering for everyone sells to everyone. The body type framework wasn't abandoned because it stopped working. It was inconvenient for a volume business. Hold that thought. It connects directly to number 1. 7. Accessories were the whole strategy. The handbag matched the shoes. The scarf finished the coat. The gloves came off only indoors. This sounds like restriction. It was actually mathematics. A woman who owned 6 dresses but rotated her accessories deliberately looked like she owned 20. The accessories weren't decoration. They were the mechanism by which a small wardrobe appeared large. Jacqueline Kennedy's wardrobe was smaller than history suggests. Her personal secretary, Mary Gallagher, documented that Kennedy gave careful attention to gloves, scarves, and shoes rather than accumulating new dresses. The appearance of a completely different woman at every public event wasn't financial, it was architectural. The global handbag market alone is now worth over $50 billion. Your grandmother discovered this mathematics for free. 6. She ironed every Sunday without exception. Sunday evening, 1956. The ironing board came out after the dishes. Every blouse, every skirt, every dress that would be worn that week, pressed flat. The kitchen smelled like warm cotton. The finished pile on the chair beside the board grew until the week was accounted for. It took 45 minutes. It also organized the week. Permanent press fabric arrived in the 1960s. Convenient, but it quietly erased the visible difference between a woman who cared for her clothes and one who didn't. An ironed blouse and a permanent press blouse look different in the same room. The ironed one looks chosen. It communicates something wrinkle-resistant synthetic never could, that she had taken the time. 5. Lipstick was not vanity. It was the standard. She was not dressed without it. In 1958, putting your face on before leaving the house was not a beauty obsession, it was a matter of respect for the people you'd encounter, for the occasion, for yourself. Street photographs of Audrey Hepburn taken throughout the 1960s, not posed, not promotional, caught by photographers on ordinary days in Rome and London, consistently show her wearing lipstick. She wasn't expecting cameras. She wore it because she was leaving the house. That was reason enough. The women who wore a single tube in 1955 replaced it twice a year and never called it a self-care practice. It was just what you did before you opened the front door. 4. One good coat for a decade. In 1953, a quality wool coat cost approximately $35, close to half a week's wages. You didn't browse for coats. You studied them. You felt the weight of the wool. You checked the seams. You bought one, and you kept it. When the lining wore through at the hem, you brought it to the seamstress. She relined it for a few dollars, and you had it for another 3 winters. You didn't replace it because a new silhouette arrived. You replaced nothing until it could no longer be fixed. The relationship with an object that cost half a week's wages was different from the relationship with an object that cost $11 on a Tuesday afternoon. One of those objects you cared for, the other you lost track of. 3. She walked like it mattered. Dorothy's mother stood in the kitchen in Kentucky in 1952 and gave her a demonstration. She stood up straight, chin parallel to the floor, shoulders settled back, movement from the hips. Then she let her shoulders drop forward, her chin fall, her spine curve. Same woman, same dress. "Look at what the dress does," she said. The dress did nothing in the second position. It bunched at the shoulder. The hem pulled. What had looked like a well-made garment now looked like something grabbed in a hurry. A dress fits differently on a woman who stands correctly. The shoulders lie flat. The hem hangs even. The silhouette reads exactly as it was designed to read. Dorothy stood straight for 60 years. She never once thought of it as style advice. She thought of it as what her mother showed her in the kitchen. 2. She dressed for the room she was entering. In 1958, there was a dress for church, a dress for the market, a dress for dinner, a dress for the house. Not because women had unlimited wardrobes, because occasion-appropriate dressing required no discussion. You knew where you were going. You dressed accordingly. You never stood in the doorway wondering if you were right. Casual Friday entered the American workplace in the early 1990s, introduced through a guide distributed by Levi Strauss & Company to American corporations. a marketing initiative designed to sell denim into offices where denim had never been acceptable. The progressive blurring of occasion, athleisure at dinner, sweatpants at the office, is not cultural evolution. It's a marketing architecture designed to multiply the categories of clothing a woman needs to own. Your grandmother always knew what to wear, not because she had more choices, because she had fewer, and she understood each one. She knew what suited her, and she bought only that. This is the rule that makes everything else on this list work. Your grandmother, standing in a shop in 1957, was not asking, "Is this fashionable?" She was asking, "Does this suit me?" She had been taught to ask that question before any other, by her mother, by her seamstress, by 30 years of accumulated observation. Not that color, it takes from your face. That one, it brings something forward. The A-line, not the pencil. The fitted waist, not the drop. She could walk through a shop in 15 minutes and know precisely what was hers and what wasn't. The fashion industry requires the opposite of this knowledge. Trends must apply universally. This season's color works on everyone. This silhouette is the one you want. Personalized taste is a threat to volume, and volume is the business. The most expensive items in most wardrobes today are the pieces that never get worn, bought in a moment of trend, in the wrong color, in a silhouette that was never going to work. Your grandmother didn't have that problem. She bought for one woman, herself, and she knew exactly who that was. Dorothy's daughter still has the wool coat. The one her mother bought in 1952 had relined in 1958 and wore for 11 winters. It hangs in a closet in Columbus, Ohio. Nobody has worn it in 20 years. It still has its shape. She has never owned anything as well made as that coat. She has spent more on coats in the last 10 years than she can accurately remember. None of them hang like that. When I started researching this, I expected to find rules that restricted women, rules designed to make them smaller, more manageable, more anxious about their appearance. That is not what I found. What I found were habits designed to make a little go a long way, to stretch a 6-dress wardrobe into something that read as abundance, to use knowledge where we now use money. Not one rule on this list requires buying more. Several explicitly prevent it. The generation that replaced these habits didn't become more elegant, they became a market. You don't have to be. If one of these landed for you, or if you remember your own mother or grandmother living by one of these rules, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Those stories deserve to be told. If this was useful, please give it a like, subscribe, and ring the bell. There's more coming, and the next video might be the one that changes how you see your wardrobe entirely. See you then.